even though they are minority in this country, they might think, you know what, I don't need to be yoked with the blacks. And somebody will just say, well, it has been a managerial decision that we are going with the other candidates and we're not going with you, right?
Panda, 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 panda. I got broads in Atlanta. Just took the lean in the family. Credit cards and
Yes. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you for having me, Raymond.
Happy to have you again, yeah.
Yes.
Because you always give more information. You have a lot to share in this country. I'll always drag you to the channel. So
thank you very much. Yes.
Don't be surprised. So let's start with this. 13 to 14 years in the country.
Let's say 15 years in the UK.
Oh, 15 years now.
Yes.
So what has it been like, the experience all these 15 years as a Black British?
As a Black British.
In relation to opportunities as a Black British, maybe jobs and living standard as a whole.
Okay. So the issue is that as a Black British, it depends where you want to enter the society. Britain is a class society. It's a classified society in the sense that you've got the upper class, middle class, and the lower class. So life within the lower class level of Britain is just normal. You know, you get the same opportunities as everybody. You struggle as everybody, and it's just normal. It's normal, and it's better than most countries in the world, which is why people come to UK for a better life. Why? Because even the low class life is better than most middle class lives in different countries. Yeah, which is the blessing that we do have in the UK. The problem starts when you become ambitious and you want to progress from being lower class, trying to venture into middle class. So you want to better yourself. That's where the uphill climb begins. Why? Because there is a lot of things that you have to work against, or a lot of things which you have to overcome. So to start with is your background. Your background can hold you back in the sense that if you don't assimilate well into the British community, in the British society and stuff like that, you will always be seen as an outsider. You will always be seen as not part of us, you know. And your skin, not only in terms of your language, your pronunciations, and your mannerisms and stuff like that, your skin color is a total giveaway in some areas where people are a little bit still not exposed to multiculturalism and stuff like that. In big cities, it's not a big problem. In small cities where we are, it's a little bit of a problem because not everybody is exposed as much. Yeah. So we have a problem where you have to overcome your background in the sense that you have to make sure that you assimilate, you grow a different personality, you create yourself an environment where you can thrive. By that I mean you also have friends, you try to have connections, you try by all means to also do what is expected, you know. What is it that is expected within this community? You try to adopt. So we're trying that shift from being you to progressing to this new person can be a little bit cumbersome in some way, and sometimes it takes a lot of time.
Sorry, let me cut you. When you mean overcoming the background, are you looking at maybe your years in the country, like you need more years, or can it be like your education, you need a higher level of education to blend? Understand?
No, because there's a lot of cultural differences. If you're coming from an African country and you're coming to the UK, there's a lot of cultural differences which you have to deal with. things that you have to change in yourself to try and fit in.
Okay.
You see, because Britain is what it is. It's never going to change for you. You are the one who's, for you to fit in, you have to change. You have to change some of your beliefs. You have to change some of your mannerisms. You know, the way you joke, the way you talk to people. It has to change because there is this narrative that we seem to be aggressive in the way we talk, but that's probably the way you were talking back home, and there was no issue with that. So you have to be mindful to try and address yourself to a new audience. So that becomes a problem. That is, you have to overcome your background, your culture, your mother tongue, and your base knowledge. You have to assimilate new knowledge, and not only overcome it, maybe incorporate it into the new you that you'll be creating, because it's a transition. It is a transition process, and nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself, and you have to. In that comes with the maturity to adopt to the new demands of the new community that you're joining in, and you have to find a place and the skills where you'll be able to contribute for your own development and your own furtherment within the community, right? There will be issues that you face, which will be the resistance to change. Resistance to change comes in many different forms. It comes in forms of segregation, which is your racism and your other deprivation that you might meet, right? And it also takes form of unnecessary conflicts that you might find yourself in the community. Why? Because if you going to think that you're going to be a leader, and a lot of people have not been led by a person who looks like you, there's going to be conflict simply because taking instructions from you is going to be different from taking instructions from Jim or from Dan. It's going to be different. So that also is another issue that you have to deal with. But once you go past that, the issue of racism is different. Our experience in terms of racism in this country is different from everybody. Some people have had it rough, some people have had it easy, and some people have not experienced it at all, right? So how is it different that we all experience differently in terms of racism in this country? Why? Because your background plays a part. Your background, the way you present yourself to people, can either make you a target or can either make you a favorite. You get me? By simply the way you carry yourself. And you can be either perceived as threatening or endearing. You get me? So it's simply because of your background and the way you try to change yourself, and also where you try to change yourself. So it depends also where you live, right? So the problem that we do have in most cases is when we come in from all corners of the world, we come in and we join Britain in most of the deprived communities. Why? Because those are the places which are cheap to live. It is cheap to live there, but there are no opportunities there. It is a dog eat dog. People are frustrated. People have got issues, and they're dealing with all sorts of issues before you can. And when you come in, you become the easy target sometimes. The other issue would be just racism on a day-to-day basis. And then there's the institutional racism that we do have. Nobody doesn't say they don't want you and all this and that, but the opportunities that you have will be different from your other counterparts, be it Asian, be it whites. You get me? You as a black person, the opportunities that you're going to have are going to be totally different, irrespective of whether you've got the same skills and all this and that and the other. We've got a glass ceiling. It's an unspoken rule to say that there is a certain level where if you have achieved yourself to that level, you might as well just be thankful, that you've gotten that far. Why? Because you will never progress from that point onwards, or most people will never progress from that glass ceiling. If you're extraordinary, that's when you can break through that glass. Or if you're coming from a different type of profession, like if you're a footballer, you're a musician, you're coming in with a different, that's a different skill set. It's not normal work. That is a talented work. Yeah. That comes with a lot of money. It's short achieved or short attained success. That is different from a person who's going to work day to day, who's going to university and they're going to go to work and try to earn their money and be professional. That's going to be different. You get me? So a few of the black community that has made it in this country have made it through talented professions, whether they are a singer, they're an actor, they are a musician, they're a footballer.
That's different.
Yes, and stuff like that. We've got a lot of scientists who are languishing in the the medium or the middle section of the society, and they cannot progress to high level management positions simply because they've maxed out. You get me? They've reached the glass ceiling. Nobody's going to tell you that this is the best you can do, but you yourself, you'll find that you cannot go any further. So this is where people will be frustrated and they migrate either to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, America, or go back home. You get me? But at the same time, that migration, you go to Australia, New Zealand, you will still reach a max out. You still find the same system, you know what I mean? Where you can move up a little bit, but then you still max out. You come to a point where no matter what you do, you can never go any further. Yeah. So if somebody asks me as to say how has been your experience in the UK as a black national, as a black British, I would say it has been a mixed bag. It has been a mixed bag of when I came in, I had better opportunities from where I was coming from. Life was better from where I was coming from and all that, right? But the problem started when I started to become a little bit ambitious. When I started to want to be better than what I'd settled into, you know? And a lot of people were surprised. Why do you want more? You know, you're going to university to do what? What are you going to be when you come out of it? You get me? What job are you going to do and all this and that? Well, why? Because the working class don't understand the idea of, a foreign national who comes in, who tries to excel and progress far than them. They don't get that. Why? Because it's a foreign idea. It's
natural.
Yes, it's a phenomenon that somebody can just come out there, you know, and just rise to stardom within. It's never going to happen. If it does happen, it will be very, very slow progress, slow and very painful progress. You get me? Yes. I don't know whether I've answered the.
Yes, covered a lot. I think that is why we have xenophobia in South Africa.
Yes.
Because they believe that the nationals are coming to take over and achieve a lot of things while they are lavishing in
locals are stagnant. Yeah. So the difference with this country is that this country is not lawless. This country's got a lot of laws which protects both the immigrant and the local. Yeah. Why? In the sense that the immigrant cannot just come here and do whatever they want. You've got rules that you have to follow. You have to conform to a certain order, and that order will control you and give you some rights and obligations. You get me? And the same thing is the locals here cannot just act the way they want. They have to follow the law. Nobody's above the law, right? Yeah. So this is a different narrative in most countries where the locals might just be above the law when they are dealing with a person who is not indigenous to their country. You get me? That's the difference. Here we are protected by the law, The law protects us to a certain extent. It's not perfect, but it's better than most countries. You get me? And UK, in the sense that in the English-speaking world, UK, it's not a perfect community, it's not a perfect society, but they've done their best to try and accommodate people from different ethnic backgrounds and include them in their society. It's not perfect in the sense that there's still going to be disparities and discriminations and infightings and divisions. But at least the law tries to hold the society as one. But the way things are in the UK, it tries to be fair. It tries by all means to be fair. A lot of people, when they come here, they don't invest time in trying to know what is it that they are entitled to, what is it that they should or they shouldn't do. You get me? So when you're like that, you're like a sitting duck. You don't know what you're entitled to. You don't know what you shouldn't do. So you end up in a situation where your rights might be taken away from you, and you don't know how to maneuver it, or you don't know how to handle yourself in that instance. But it's not the end of the world. Why? Because there's still Citizen Advice Bureau where you can go and you get free advice, and people give you all sorts of pointers, irrespective of who you are, where you're coming from, your immigration status, and what have you. If you need help, you go there, you get the information that you need. But the problem is, if you don't ask the question, you might not get the answer.
Nobody will give it.
Yes. So it's a question of need to know basis. So if you ask the right questions, ask the right people, you get everything that you need to thrive or to survive in this country. Yeah. But the problem that we do have is you trying to prove institutional racism is a big problem. Why? Because there isn't real things that you can point at to say this is racist. You get me? Institutional racism is a system of doing things which is sometimes is inefficient, sometimes is biased, sometimes, and at the end of the day, people who are racist and discriminatory and all this, they hide behind the loopholes of the system, so that if anybody is to interrogate, be it the hiring process or the promotion process and stuff like that, they cannot really find race as the issue. Why? Because there'll be a lot of other things to look at before we look at your race, which you get me? And this is the reason why when they did this finding to say, is Britain institutionally racist? And the verdict came back as saying, Britain is not institutionally racist. Why? Because they cannot find it. Beyond reasonable doubt, they can't find it.
It exists.
Yes. The people who are being victimized, they can feel it. We can talk about it behind closed doors and all this and that. But when we want to be fair and professionally minded to say, okay, what is it that you think is institutionally racist? You cannot really put your hand on it. But you know the reason why you didn't get that job, the reason why you didn't go get the promotion or this and that is mainly to do with the fact that you're of the wrong persuasion. You get me? But you can't really tell. Why? Because there'll be a lot of other things that I can bring to the discussion that will either disqualify you or make you not the best candidate. Because at the end of the day, I do not have to disqualify you. I just have to make somebody a better candidate than you. I've had instances where you go to interviews, you interview well and all this and that, and you get to the last stage of the interview. And somebody will just say, well, it has been a managerial decision that we are going with the other candidates and we're not going with you, right? You cannot go back and say, what criteria did you use in making the managerial decision?
At all.
No, it's you get me?
The decision.
Yes. So,
all right.
Life as a Black British is in many ways better than most countries, right? but it comes to a point where you can never progress from a certain level, which has been known as the glass ceiling. You get me? The glass ceiling, why? Because it is invisible. You can't see it, but it will still hold you back. Until you crack it open, you will not go anywhere. You get me? You can have lateral promotions and all this. You can change jobs, doing the same thing, but you can never go past that. You get me?
Okay.
And this is simply because Britain is a class society where it has got ruling class, the elite, middle class, and the lower class. You get me? And this issue of saying there's a glass ceiling applies to everyone who is trying to move from the lower class and who has migrated from lower class to middle class, be it white, Chinese, Indian, or black. You'll find that there are some families who have known to be working class for generations. No matter what they have done in this country, they have never progressed from being working class into middle class. No. Why? Because that's how the system is rigged. And we come in, when we come in, we don't take time to investigate that, to say, okay, Britain is a class society. If you're coming in as a prince into this country, as a Maharaja from India, or your life experience is going to be totally different from a person who's coming from a deprived part of the same country. It's going to be totally different. Why? Because you're coming in with money, you're coming in with connections, you're coming in with connections not from the lower class, you're coming in with connections from an upper class. And who you know takes precedence to what you know. So until you know somebody who is in a better class than you might find it very difficult to move upwards.
Fine. All right, thank you. Lastly, before we round up, the government just introduced, like you said, that the British, they are really trying, the government are really trying to curb some of these things. So they just come up with the ban of BAME. That is the Black, Asian minority, ethnic minority. So what does this mean for a Black person? Is it a step in the right direction?
No, I think that one is not really a step in the right direction, in the sense that it is sweeping the identity of people under the carpet. Yeah.
Okay.
It is sort of like refusing to discuss about it. But here we are. Within UK, we've got people from those backgrounds, from British, from Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups. We do have them. So trying to say that we're not going to use that term is the same issue as saying we're not going to use the N-word. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
But it exists in people's minds. It exists, and us not talking about it doesn't make it go away. So it for me, it's not really a step in the right direction. Somebody's been mal-advised, but it is putting a muzzle on the issue of race. Because if you then muzzle up everybody and they cannot talk like that, then the discussion on race becomes a little bit, pacified. You can't, because you've taken out some of the identity. So in this case,
I watched.
In this case, what we're saying is, if you're saying the name BAME is inappropriate, so are we saying that when I go to a polling station, I'm not going to be asked to put down my ethnicity? If I'm still filling in, how do I identify? If I'm still filling in, I identify myself as Black African, Black Caribbean, Indian or Chinese and all this and that, and we can't talk about it, that becomes a problem.
No, okay, there's a BBC documentary I watched.
Yes.
So I think the idea is that the Black people, they don't really want to be called the word them, you understand? Maybe they prefer, okay, I'm British from a so-so background. Okay, call me British, but Pakistani background, you understand?
Yeah.
Because I believe that the word BAME is demeaning them or something. So I don't know.
You see, this is where I would say, it's people have got an issue with self-identification, or people are not comfortable with their identity, and being grouped to say BAME, it is an attempt to group all the non-indigenous groups into one, which means that myself and an Indian guy, a guy from Pakistan, guy from China, a guy from any other minority ethnic backgrounds, will be classed as one, will be put in one envelope or one umbrella.
I know you think that brings racism.
Yes, the only issue with that is that the problem is an Indian guy might not want to be put at the same level as a black guy. A Chinese guy might not want to be put on the same level as a black guy. Why? Because their experience is different.
Yeah.
Their experience in this country is different. And some of them think that they are superior to black people. Even though they are minority in this country, they might think, you know what, I don't need to be yoked with the blacks. Why? Because I'm Indian, I'm better than the blacks. You know, back in the days, we used to sell these people in the slave trade when we were Arabs. So we've got that legacy of colonialism where people, especially people from the colonial countries, where Indians and other people were classed as whites and not as blacks, becomes an issue when it comes to this country. They don't want to be identified as blacks, or they don't want to be identified with blacks. So it's a false sense of identity, where people are saying, don't call me this, call me a guy with a Pakistani background and all this. Yeah, okay, fine. But you in the general term, you are from a black and Asian minority background. That's the end of it. And if we don't do that, what we're saying is we're trying to muzzle the discussion on race. The idea that people are coming from different backgrounds, we're trying to muzzle it. And people don't want to be put in one, or don't want to be organized, identified as one. You get me? But to a native Briton, it's him and the outsider. So it doesn't matter who is the outsider. You might be Indian, black, Chinese, and all this and that. So the BAME, that's what it is. And failing to accept that is just, I don't get it. I might need to research on it. I might need to actually understand the story behind it. But for me, it is what it is. You are black or you are Asian, you are a minority, and that's what you are. And this is what it is. The only issue is that we do not have the same experience. Asians and blacks and do not have the same experience in this country. Why? But this is not we are not native to this country. So is it correct to be called minorities? Yes, it is correct to be called minorities. Is it demeaning to be called minorities? Unless if you think that you've been paired with the wrong people, that's when you think it might be demeaning. And I would want to know who's complaining. Is it the black people who are complaining, or is it the Asians who are complaining that it's a little bit demeaning? Because my suspicion is that a lot of black people don't bother what they are called. Why? Because whatever you're called doesn't really change your experience. Your experience doesn't change from what you're being called. You will get whatever you get. We can call you princess and treat you like a pig. You get me? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So people get hung up on the idea, don't call me this, don't call me. Come on. I can call you sweetheart and treat you like
The
You,
pig.
you know what I mean? And it doesn't. So for me, I would say it's losing the argument. We'll be losing the argument. We'll be going with the argument in the wrong direction. And it takes away the organization. The idea that we were pulling resources together of people of color in this country, or people who are not native to this country, we're pulling resources together, getting organized, and having a voice at a higher level. It's being dismantled. If we then break down that organization, or that coming together, that's dismantling the voice. And if it is a case of we ourselves doing it, I want to know why. Why would you be doing that? Why would you be doing away with an organization which has been making us visible in different platforms? You get me? Why would we want to go against something that has been working to voice our concerns? I don't know. Unless we've got a lot of sellouts, we've got a lot of people who are bought out, and somebody discovers that, okay, you know what? If these people coming together, they're becoming a little bit influential and powerful, and it is becoming a little bit harder to ignore them. So we might need to destabilize them, and so you buy out a few people and say, okay, cause some chaos, and divide and rule. And this has been always the issue. This has always been the case, where a little bit of progress, somebody comes in, divides and rules you, and you lose your organization, you lose your traction, and you are set back. This is a setback. That will be a huge setback. Why? Because in most deprived communities, who do you live with? Who do you live next door to? Mostly Asians and Black people live in the same communities. So our experience might be slightly different in the sense that some have been here longer, especially Asians have been here longer than most Blacks. So they're a little bit well organized than us. So they can try and they've got a parallel community, they've got a parallel institution, which they've got their own banks, they've got their, you get me? Where only Asian people can go. They've got their own religion and all this and that, which is different from most Black people. Because most Black people, we are mainstream. We go with the system that is native to this country. That's where our experience differs a little bit. When we come here, we don't have money. We're not given money from our African bank to buy a house and to set ourselves up and all this. No, we come here, we go to work, we save money, we deposit and all this, just like the locals here. But a lot of Asian people come in here, they go to their church, they are funded, they're given no interest loans, they buy a house, they pay back the money, and the money rotates like that. You get me? Within their community. It's not what we do. It's so, and you would find that a lot of Asian people own the chip shops, they own the taxis, they've got certain industries where they dominate. We don't have that.
We don't have it.
Yes, we do not have industries which are set aside for us to say, this is for Blacks. This is no. We go to the industries which are mainstream. We work, in the health and health sector. We're working with everybody. We're working with the working class of this country. You get me? But if you go to most industry, if you go to a lot of industrial areas, you would see one thing. There is the absence of Asian community. It is mostly Black people and whites who are working within most of the industry. Why? Because the Asians have got their own industries which are running a parallel economy. That's where our experiences differ, but we abide to the same laws, we go back to the same estates, and the country is not our native home. End of story. That's our common background. So putting us together as one group is not such a bad thing. And I don't know what harm could come from being identified as Black and Asian ethnic minority. I don't know. I don't see any wrong with
Ah, I think you have said a lot. It doesn't mean what you are called. At the end of the day, they can call you sweetheart. They'll still treat you like a lizard. So
it.
I'm happy for your views and on this topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming
You're
back
welcome.
again to the channel.
Yes, thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, cheers.
All right, so if you are watching this video and you have any topic that you want Taffy the boss to address, let us know in the comment section. All right, thank you once again. Bye.
Cheers.